going to throw a question to whomever wants to start us off. I'm interested from an investor's point of view. What are those data points that investors are responding to in regenerative ag? And how do we ensure that science and metrics influence both investor behaviour and farm gate decisions?
From our perspective, the more information we can get from your farm about what you're doing, particularly with regards to how you're accounting for sustainable regenerative farming if you're on that journey, and not everyone wants to talk about that, but most people are on the journey even if they don't know it, the better we're able to understand your planned investment and the better we're able to support with hopefully finance. What's it going to take for investors to get on board?
I think it depends on who the investor is. And there's lots of different levels of investors. So if I'm a farmer on my own farm, then I'm an investor. And one of my primary concerns is how are we getting on as a family? How are we going to continue this property as a family? Do we even want to do that? So I think that on the family farm, the data that you really want is what are the goals and the visions? Do they gel together for all the family members of that unit? And dealt with that sort of stuff for a very, very long time. I'd say the greatest dysfunction in most family farms is lack of unity around the goals and the vision.
The mismatch in goals within a family on a family farm can also potentially happen in the boardroom with investors who don't quite understand what it takes to manage sustainably. And you could see a simple example of a farm manager saying, look, I do need to destock because, the rain's dropping off or whatever, and, we need to manage this sustainably. But then, the board saying, what are you selling animals for? They're only worth this, and you should. So I think part of the thing that we've got to sort of grapple with is let's have the ability to have some alignment on these short and long-term goals at all of the levels of stakeholders in a business.
There is a whole lot of robust science around these indicators, and of course we don't know that everything works everywhere all the time, 100% of the time, but sometimes just because it can't immediately be explained doesn't mean that it's not happening. And I think it really is around how we communicate that so that we can just bloody move forward. Like, uncertainty is not the cause to pause, right? Like, I just think that we need to move forward. So when I'm thinking about that Evoke Ag slide that I moved, like, they're calling out for solutions, right? That is what we need to be focused on. Stop pulling stuff back because we don't have time for that anymore. It's like, how do we focus on solutions so that some of those big players can actually put things in place and then we can just move the conversation forward.
How do we ensure that investors, and not just family farms, but the broader industry can get involved? David?
Well, farming is largely risk management. Like good farm management is often related to risk management. We heard a great story from Stuart in his opening about reduced input costs. I just had a very, very interesting example about reducing phosphorus spend. And that for me is all good risk management, because so it's easier to make money later if you're spending less up front. So we will incorporate that element of risk management in a loan application rather than having a very prescriptive checklist. It'll be more that's one of the many ways we would assess management ability of a farm.
I've been thinking a lot about risk. So as Danny talked about earlier, one of the really interesting findings from the Farming for the Future project was this really strong signal between relationships between different aspects of natural capital on a farm and the resilience of a farm business, which is the stability and sufficiency of income. Good management is artisanal in nature. It's not prescriptions, it's not proscriptions. It's tinkering with your system to make it work.
Terry, you've mentioned previously that carbon credits should be the bonus, not the driver. How do we reframe carbon markets so they support rather than distort regenerative practice?
Good question. I think one of the problems that we face at the moment with the carbon space is that we've got methodologies that have been developed by scientists and bureaucrats for scientists and bureaucrats, and they've forgot about farmers. That it's got to become more farmer friendly. But carbon is an output or a bonus for actually doing the right thing by your environment. And to me, it's about, what management are you doing and what are you doing to improve your ecosystem and your productivity, because by improving your ecosystem, Mother Nature gives you a lot more. farmers in Australia and in many other parts of the world are not paid the full price of producing food. And what pays for the rest of it is the environment and the labour, the farmers themselves and their families. And so I believe that things like natural capital payments and carbon credits and so on are actually a way of getting society to pay for the regeneration of our national estate. It's all of our national estate. I agree totally with a lot of what Orgill said this morning, is that I don't believe we should look at land as something we own. It is something we're a custodian of or a steward of for a very, very short period of time.
I'm going to take the banker view. So this is hopefully a very like-minded and I would say progressive room. And I'm here to talk about the impact to access to markets, your business, threat to your business and opportunity to make more money. So and while I agree that there should be a consideration of the rules, by having that structure in place, you get more people on the journey because they see dollar signs potentially for their business. And that's a good outcome for the overall, potentially, environment, even though their motivation might be different to those in the room.
The data is there, and if people aren't happy with the term regenerative, then that's one thing. But I think outcomes-focused land management that someone mentioned earlier, in terms of what are we actually trying to achieve, right? So how do we get there? And you don't have to understand the science box. The investors don't have to understand it, but they've got to understand that we've got this.
Putting a method and saying these are the rules, and if you follow these rules, I'll pay you something, has got the danger of then stifling innovation, because if somebody comes up with an innovation that doesn't fit the bill but gets a great result, it's going to take 2 years for that innovation to sort of surface. It's going to take how many years to do a publication? 5 years to do a publication, another 3 years for that to get accepted, and then another 5 years for that
defending
to get defend it for 5 years, and then gets a new method. So we kind of need to build ways to really flush these innovations out much more quickly, and to be able to measure in a way that doesn't constrain but enables adaptation. And I think what I've described is the holy grail of any system.
The challenge for a lot of agriculture is not so much about being regenerative or whatever. The challenge is transition. If I want to change, what do I change and how do I change it, and how do I change it without disappearing into the valley of death? You've got all the evidence of being over here is really good.
Yeah.
And then we've got all the evidence of what's happening, in the commercial world over here. The bit that's missing, I believe, to get more farmers to cross that valley of death is the process of transition, and doing that without risk. Although farmers really confuse me around risk, because they're very, very risk averse, and then they'll take 10 gambles a day, which is a bit of a split personality in a way, isn't it?
Bring it back to the panel. Is it investment that's required for that notion of transition?
Potentially in science, but science follows the leading farmers. And that's not necessarily science, that's actually just real practical stuff. And then having those leaders inform and teach the followers, that's where we'll get shift. Our problems aren't soil health and all these things. The problem is the paddock between these two flappy bits. And so it's the paradigms about changing. That's where the issues are.
Yeah.
The best way to start changing that is farmers learning from farmers, and learning what those transitional steps are and how to do it without failing or risking your total business, and having to sell your header at the end of the year.
Yeah. Stu, last question.
Yeah, just going on about the methodology, that's what's killing it. I mean, we've got to start working towards what outcomes we want, because we're stifling innovation. We've already heard that we're, 5-10 years behind research by the time we develop those methodologies. We haven't got time to get on with that. We've got enough science to sort of set the outcomes that we want in society, and then just reward those outcomes. We can backdate those historically from spatial data, ground truth it. So, that's the encouraging thing. The phosphorus stuff that you met, I put a research project up to GRDC 20 years ago because I knew that we had to cut things to force the biology to work. how much do we cut it, you know? And it's just, you know, this is observation coming from farms, and we need to get more scientists out on farms to see what's happening, you know, working with nature, and we can start understanding this a lot better. But let's not stifle innovation.
Thank you all very much. Round of applause for our fantastic panellists. Thank you.